Know Thyself is dedicated to the exploration of the most rewarding task an individual can ever embark on, the journey to find oneself. This is the Know Thyself podcast. Well, all right. Welcome to the Know Thyself podcast. I'm here with Daniel.
Well, hello.
And I'm Eduardo. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, man. Good to be seen by you.
Good to be seen, yes. Good to be seen, good to be heard. Man, so much has happened in the last week that, I'm glad we were able to prepare prior to, starting this recording and organizing our thoughts, because thank you to all the listeners who have given us such good feedback on us being back here and everything you have to say about it, which is what helps Daniel and I, direct these conversations, because we're like, okay, did we come out too strong? Did we make any sense? I know sometimes for us, the ability for us to communicate with one another feels so private, right? But we're doing this on a recording and then we're publishing this. And then it's not till much later that you see people's feedback or hear of people's feedback and you realize, we are all one. All right. We've always said that we are all one. We are all from one place. We always feel from one place, but we might feel isolated. We might feel divided at times. And my goal with anything I've ever done in my life, whether it's friends, family, and especially strangers, is to just remind people like, hey, we're just walking each other home, right? I always like when you say that. And so that's kind of my purpose always here on the podcast. And so many questions that I always have, so many of the questions I always have, I should say, I can always confide in you, talk to you about it, kind of sort things out, philosophize on this, maybe ponder on that, whatever it might be. But in the end, like, I just feel comforted talking to you, and I'm glad that others feel the same from the conversations that you and I are having. So one of the things that you unpacked, just to kind of get into it right away, man, is, and it's always fascinating for me in terms of the planetary alignments and what's happening, what's resonating, what's changing energies, is, first of all, you brought up to me before the podcast, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn, right? And so you kind of told me, like, we'll get into that, what it really means. But what I really liked that you said is, you're like, why is this powerful? Why is this knowledge of these planetary energies so powerful? And, you and I have said this, and I'm sure others have said this, is what are we feeling internally, right? What's in the subconscious? What is actually going on out there, right? Is it the chaos in the exterior? Is it what media outlets and everything else are telling me to feel? Or am I feeling something else that I need a little bit more of a connection on with people who can confirm that feeling, not by, again, visuals that are happening, like Hollywood is collapsing, or, the news says we're at war with this and gas prices or that. It's like those things, I think, they're happening to a degree, right? But that's not why we're all feeling a little like something smells off here. Something smells fake.
Right.
Like, I'm almost afraid to lean my hand on that brick wall, because is that just going to flop over? What is actually going on here? And so I want to just jump into that, just because you always have such a wealth of knowledge with astrology, but also with charts and everything else that we've discussed in all our episodes leading up to this. So take it away, my friend. Starting with Pluto, by the way.
Sure. Yeah. No. And great introduction to kind of like move us into this, because I do think this personal relationship with tapping into this like barometer that is experiencing all of these energy shifts, because a spiritual awakening sounds so good on paper. And it's like really sexy when you see that book in a new age shop. But like, spiritual awakenings are uncomfortable. They're supposed to be uncomfortable. And the biggest process that you have is destruction of falsality, not only in the external, but in the internal as well. And so, there's never been a time like this with such drastic astrological transits, especially with the slower moving signs like Pluto, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus. Like those planets take a very long time to cycle through the zodiac, where like the sun goes through the zodiac in 1 year. The moon goes through the entire zodiac in 29 days, right? So they're always processing of going and shifting into new signs. Those are the quicker, more personal signs that we feel in fluctuation. Like once you start, gauging and calculating and orientating yourself with the moon, you feel the astrological energy shift from when it goes to an earth sign to a water sign. Like you feel these changes internally. But these bigger planets, these slower ones, when they make moves, they're not just like whispering new energy. They're rewriting the reality as we know it. And they're actually like creating a new relationship entirely with the construct. And so not only have we never had as many planets that are slow moving make transitions in such a close time, the magnitude of the signs that they moved into, like we've spoke about it now for like 3 years about how like monumental it was that not only Neptune, but Saturn moved from Pisces to Aries together in a relationship, something that we don't have any kind of relationship with. Now, Neptune and Saturn have moved through other signs together in like a partnership holding hands like they were, but never from Pisces to Aries. There's nothing more extreme. There's nothing more like difficult to understand and to process because Pisces is the end, Aries is the beginning. So we quite literally went from the book of Revelations to the book of Genesis with not only the keeper of time, but the most mystical planet that rules, the dreamscape, rules like your spiritual reality. It rules your personal antenna to how you tap in to this universal life force energy. Once you get your chakras and your aura aligned, that aspect of like how this energy gets fed into you like a radio, this just went from the most non-personal sign to the most personal sign. We're experiencing something that we've never experienced before. Everything in your spiritual development has been setting the table for this moment. Everything in the spiritual past for the last 1,000 years has been setting the moment for us right here. Like everything from like Rudolf Steiner, Manly P. Hall, like all of these like ancient teachers, even like, Saint Germain and all these, they were literally setting the table, presenting esoteric information for this moment that we are finding ourselves in, when all of these would happen, because this is when the game turns on. This is when it really kind of like shows up to like, how are you going to utilize this spiritual individuality now that it is personal and localized within you? And this is not a time for like any more of like mysticism being a hobby. Like it's the real. Everything is, there's no choice now. It's either you're going to, there's like two worlds being created. You're either going to step into the new world or you're going to kind of step into this new normal of static. But the idea and the place of not being able to choose, that's done. The line is literally getting drawn in the sand right now. And the aspect of like, I don't think I'm ready, let me hold on to like the safety rails. Well, the planets and these transitions are dissolving all of those security blankets at the moment we're speaking. And that's really what like Pluto almost brings to the situation as Pluto moved into Aquarius a couple years ago. Pluto almost like initiated all of this when it moved into Aquarius. And when Pluto moves into a sign, it's never gentle. When we think about Pluto, it's the planet that rules Scorpio. So it's the water, but it's the pressure system. It's like water boiling on a stove kind of energy. And Pluto represents everything that we speak about on this podcast: cycles and patterns, the esoteric, symbolism, tarot, astrology. Everything that we kind of explore belongs to Pluto and Scorpio. And it really is. It's this like underworld key that comes and it like opens up forgotten aspects of consciousness. And so what we're kind of seeing now is this aspect of like when Pluto shifts into this area, it's breaking down structures. It's breaking down anything that's not going to serve like this further incoming age of like the age of Aquarius, which we're moving into. So when we talk about like astrological ages, those are like 2,165 years. They're very long processes. And we've been a part of the shift from the age of Pisces to the age of Aries. And that's going to continue. This like transition period that we're living through will continue for the rest of our lives. Like we're all going to be part of that transition from Pisces to Aries. But there's like steps that it takes to get closer to that. And that Pluto moving into Aquarius was a really, really big one. Because it kind of sped up this aspect of technology. Because Aquarius represents kind of like the future. It represents the idea of like networks, but it also represents like the individual within the network, which again is going to be the most powerful theme that we kind of look at. And Pluto, when it moves into a sign, it's like, what's not true enough to survive? Like what's not true? What's not actually like aligned to the eternal truth that is going to survive, and anything else that's synthetic is going to start to decay. And we've seen this with like political change, you know, like what you spoke about with even the aspect of like Hollywood losing its structure and its like influence on us. Even like the like, I guess almost like people's relationship with even like the news and media. Like people are starting to question that in a way that they didn't do in the past. You know, like definitely like even like my parents in that generation, they're starting to like understand the idea that like, oh, and this is like a circus. This is just a carnival. Like they're just actors on a stage and we're just watching it. But they're utilizing this to like, you know, shift our attention and put our attention to kind of like create the outcomes that they want. But it's not based in truth. So it's all starting to decay. And so we're kind of seeing that in that kind of way. And at the same time, we're seeing this like advancement because right when Pluto went into Aquarius is when like AI started to become accessible to everybody. And this is going to be something that, you know, even speeds up when the planet that rules Aquarius, which is Uranus, it's the one that's going through the next change. And once that goes into Gemini, we're going to see a huge speed up in not only the aspect of technology, AI, we're going to see a huge like influence with like crypto. And again, I'm not saying like one or the other. I think they're all kind of like Ponzi schemes when it comes to currency. You know, I'm always been like, I want to know how much my money weighs. Like gold bars is what I think is like the best way to kind of do it, you know, but like this aspect of like moving towards that. Yeah, it's happening. It's going to speed up so much. And, you know, even the aspect of like people living inside, a synthetic technological network. It's what the game Grand Theft Auto has been waiting for. Like it keeps getting delayed. It's because they're delaying it until Uranus goes into Gemini. So they can like run this thing out because I think that's going to be a big player in the way of people like disconnecting from this reality and tapping into a more synthetic one. But what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, we're caught a little bit with one foot in, like a foot in one place and also a foot in another, because I hear people in their conversations talk about this, the uncomfortable transition between living in the digital and living in the physical. Sometimes you can live in the physical and it's okay, right? Everyone's just like, oh, this is still where reality is based. But I feel a little more comforted, like a blanket, like a warm blanket, whenever I can like put my thumbs to this device and find myself in another life where people only see what I want them to see and only know the best parts of me. And you also have this acceptance that if you do run into one of these people who are not generally that close to you, the mask might be like pulled off for a second, but you're like, at the same time, like you don't really care. So I have seen that happen in real time. There's people I haven't seen in years, but I only follow them on social media. And then I run into them. I'm like, whoa, you look nothing like your face did in all the photos I've seen for the last 4 years. And you can almost see that person looking at you like, don't look at me. But So anyways, I digress. I'm just saying I've noticed that there's people who I haven't really spoken to, and they keep an appearance in that world. And we all do it, right? We all do it to a degree. Um, I try not to ever put that out there because I think this is so much more fun. The real, right? The real breath of air, the real breeze through your entire body when you like, get to a place where you feel like all the elements, beaming on your body or expressing themselves to your physical and biological, figure. But people are starting to not necessarily opt out, but there's people who will try to convince you otherwise of that. They're like, that sounds like a lot of work. Like, what are you talking about? You're talking about like when the ocean hits your face, like, dude, I don't want to be wet. And you're like, oh, okay. Never mind. Sorry for romanticizing everything I just said, I guess. But you're seeing those conflicts happening between generations, right? So people will use quick examples of like, oh, that's that generation versus this generation. And I don't believe that. I just think they have made it so uncomfortable for us from the discomfort that's already happening, but the discomfort always brings something beautiful. And instead of us going through the process and accepting the process by its own terms, they are also hijacking the uncomfortable by making it things in this physical world also uncomfortable. So it's like, we're going to do this with the idea of the American dream. We're going to do this with the idea of your neighbor. We're going to do this with the idea of the weather. We're going to do this with the idea of money. You're never going to own anything. And so people are just like, I'm just upset because nothing seems to be worthy of the fight. So I'm just going to give in. And what is the easiest thing to give into? Well, I guess the things that I'm not finding resistance in, and that might be in the digital, right? It's cheaper.
Sure.
It's easy to access, and you can zone out. You can numb down. I mean, there's people
Yeah.
right now who are not, there's a high, I shouldn't be saying statements like this because it's like, well, where are your facts? I have heard there's a lot of people out there who just don't drink alcohol anymore, right? Like it's becoming less and less of a popular thing to do. But on the other side of it, whether it is psychedelics or other, neurological enhancing, like, um, medicine, we'll call it, people are all in. Even older generations, younger generation, it's kind of starting to mix because people are like, I need to go somewhere else. I need to find inner peace, or I need to find some kind of elixir somewhere else that's not causing me this like constant stress and constant change. And that being said, you were telling me, historically speaking, with this like rewrite of civilization, as you were saying, and the way that the networks are being like shifted, and everybody's feeling a little bit like misaligned. You were saying this happened again in the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and the industrial upheaval. So you were saying to me, based on what we talked about, historical comparisons to that, where we
Yeah.
saw people kind of go through that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Now, not into the magnitude that we're experiencing right now. Like this is a brave new world. Like nobody in our recorded history has ever experienced a transit of this magnitude that we're experiencing. But historically, every event can be correlated to some sort of transit or some sort of um, connection between like planets either making like an angle or like either like in opposition or squaring each other. Everything, every historical event you can actually follow to an astrological pattern. Everything in the stock market, from the rise of a stock market to the crash of a stock market, can be actually aligned and correlated with actual astrological patterning. And this is why one of the most difficult things that you see a lot of people do, and why a lot of astrological books start in the like the preface, they're always saying like, I started this book to disprove astrology. And then once I started to go into it, I became like a student of astrology because it's undeniable. Like if you look at like one of the best ways to actually like look at it is not only the historical record, but the actual like stock market, because the stock market is so calculated and it's so like by the second, it can tell you like the movement that's kind of happening. You can correlate astrological movement, even in like macro cycles and micro cycles by planetary moves. Like you can even look at like the effect when the moon goes from 16 degrees to 17 degrees with signs that had like, stocks that had their natal chart in Cancer. It's like, boom, they get like a 10 point boost right there. Like, the stock market crashes, all astrologically aligned. It's undeniable when you look at those kind of patterns. Even things like grain prices, commodities, gold prices, all calculated. And the beautiful thing is, again, is like the data of it is so like almost like compounded. There's like so much available data for the stock market. Again, by the moment you can kind of look at this. And again, this is something that we're even seeing as we're moving into this new age. Like, even like, I think it was like Bloomberg or somebody just wrote an article about how astrology was like studied by these like scientists, and they realized that it had like a 95% effect rate when it came to like stock market forecasting. I think, Elon car guy, Musk, he's been talking a lot about gematria and numerology. Conor McGregor made a thing about like numerology and gematria. It's all gonna be presented and it's gonna come out because the truth is gonna come out in all things at this point. Now, I would be hesitant to trust it. Like if they're gonna start saying that stock market is aligned to astrology, I would be really prepared for them to synthetically crash the market when it's supposed to go up with an astrological pattern in the near future, because like they don't play that game. They've been using astrology this whole time. If they're going to tell you about it, they're probably going to synthetically try to like screw you on that as well. So it's not something to be like just to jump on a board, because again, you consented to them telling you that it wasn't real in the past, and you consented it. So now that they're going to tell you it is real, it's like, it's that kind of thing. So not saying that that's like a turn around and jump on kind of board thing. Or maybe just like, in the future, but like, it's fascinating, because the data is there in those kind of things. So historical records for sure.
Well, no. I mean, I'm not saying don't backpedal. I'm saying what you're saying to the context of this conversation is it's more than just considered nowadays in a conversation. Like before, it might be just like with a couple of friends, maybe just one person, maybe a suggestion, maybe I heard, and it's like kind of stored away in the back of your mind. I have had conversations with actually close friends about this, and it's not about like whether it's accurate, not accurate. It's the fact that it's considered, right? You talked about how in Pisces there's that spiritual dreaming that we're in, and now we're in a state of action and we're in a state of awakening in Aries. But I feel like that awakening is felt with the fact that, there's no more room for dogma. It's like people want to be like, no, like what's really going on here? What's the data showing? Like what's happening? People are like, I'm tired of wasting time here. Like let's talk about this. And like there shouldn't be a shame about talking about it. Like what are your facts? And the fact that we're just having that ability to say that, or like open the floor that way, is in itself speaking to who we've now started to evolve into, rather than before being like, this guy's just a little bit off. You know what I mean? It's that's in itself the evidence for me, from whatever perspective it is that we're coming at on something that we might have just discovered or has been discovered for a long time. The ability to have the conversation about, again, something smells wrong here. We've been wronged here. That doesn't look right, is being discussed more in numbers than ever before. So,
Absolutely. In all of these talking heads and these like synthetic authority figures that everybody looked up to, it's all getting exposed, like who they really are, and with that being said, like as we're kind of like seeing all of this uncovering with all of this information coming out, it's having people reevaluate everything. And that's like a big thing. Like right now, you have to re-examine your relationship with everything. People in your life, your relationship to your spirituality, your relationship to your hobbies, your relationship to your diet, all of it needs to be examined because it's either going to go to the next octave and it's going to be like spiritually enhanced, or it needs to dissolve. And that's what everybody is kind of facing, especially in the individuals that haven't gone through the process of awakening and are experiencing it now. Now, majority of like our listeners who have been with us for a long time, this awakening has already happened for us. This awakening has already happened for us. And so what we're really experiencing right now is this spiritual backbone that's being established, because all of a sudden we have more access to capacity than we used to. We're more sensitive, and we're feeling like a compression, but more of like a dilation of the human experience. If everybody's noticed, synchronicities have been happening to you in a rate that is almost uncomfortable in these last couple of weeks, in these like last couple of months. This is going to continue. Like when people are like, hey, when is this going to stop? It's not going to stop. You're going to become more calibrated to it. But no, your synchronicities of like how you're living this life and like the amount of attention that you feel is like being spiritually focused in, this isn't going to stop. This is the new normal. This is what you're stepping into. But you should be honored that you were prepared for that, because it's like, it set you up to like allow for this movement and this time to be like a time of action rather than like this time of panic. Because again, if you weren't aware of the like the garbage that was really behind the political scenes and the, Holly weird and everything like that. Right now, that's what's bombarding you. And you're taking this in and you're identifying that with this pressure, and you're freaking out because all of a sudden, like Tom Hanks and P. Diddy aren't the nice people you thought they used to be. Or like, you're still like, you're starting to read like Rainn Wilson's like Instagram posts and like Twitter account in a little bit different of an angle. Cause you're like, oh, this is actually disgusting what he's writing. This isn't comedy. Like, all of this is fading, dropping away. And so, but it's so nice if you've already been through this process, you're not a deer in the headlights right now. This is the time for you to really get focused in and like localize, like, what is my spiritual direction and what is my personal relationship with this universal life force that's speaking to me louder in a way that it's never spoke to me before, or as directly as it ever has been done. We're really being kind of like looked at like, what this life is and how it's not accidental. And people are just noticing like repetition in numbers, symbolic symbols that are coming up, and all these like fascinating alignments. We're really being able to tune in a way that we've never been to, like, oh, this universe doesn't speak in language. It speaks in patterning. And it's opening up that these signatures are getting louder and louder. And at this moment, it feels overwhelming, but this is always what we were desiring for. We were always looking for a more magical connection to life. And now you got it. And it's just like, now we just have to learn how to like, incorporate, like instill that within us. And there will be a calmer aspect, but it's not that the waves are going to get calmer anytime soon. It's just, you're going to become a better sailor with this new energy that's unfolding for us.
Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, no, I do think, and it's funny because I see it in my personal life. I see it with specifically in my line of work. My line of work outside of everything else I do, I see it a lot. The structure that's falling apart before the eyes of those who bought into it, but then those who also bought into it for the right reasons. I'll give you one example. So I work in orthopedics. And I've multiple times, and it's an international company, so I meet people from either outside of the U.S. or in the U.S. And there are those who bought into the structure in healthcare for what they thought would be a monetary reward, especially as a surgeon. And there are those who are true carpenters of repairing the body. One in particular, who's younger than me, really nice guy in Flagstaff. He's a sculptor. Like, he's a sculptor, he's a woodworker, but he also specializes in orthopedic hand repair. And he has no sweat coming off of his forehead when there's like not enough reimbursement rates coming and not enough insurances that can pay him. He's not like, I signed up for the Porsche. He's just like, oh, whatever, while the other ones are like, I was told in the old structure that by this time I would be that guy driving a Porsche.
Yeah.
And so in my line of work in marketing, you have two forces that are kind of, one's passive and one is extremely aggressive. That's like, make me more money, find me more money. I'm like, I did not control the conglomerate that is healthcare and how that structure is falling apart and things are shifting. So it's not up to me on how you get paid. So no matter how many commercials you do and how many things we can promote, I don't think it's going to ever go to what you want it to be. But that's just on a personal level as I see that. To your synchronicity, man, my favorite number has always been 333. And the number pops up in so many ways to the point where, like, I obviously have done my research with the debunking of that, where it's like you subconsciously look for that number. No. I was in traffic the other day, stuck. I'm rarely in traffic, by the way, anymore, thankfully. But I was stuck in traffic coming home, and it came to a complete stop. It's not my clock that I look at. I've been driving for the last 20 years on this freeway, and you will know it, right? It's the I-17. But I'm going south on the 17, and right at that moment, this is already after seeing that number so many times, always seeing that number. I'm always seeing that number. And I'm very thankful for that, by the way. When I come to a complete stop, I look to my left, there's a storage shed unit called 333. And it's just like looking right at me, like where my car stop is right there. And I'm like, okay, I'm almost like trying to run away from it, but I'm not. I'm just like, it doesn't matter. The point being is synchronicities of all kinds. I'm an open heart to them, and very excited to see them coming full force, right? But again, to your point on how I brought these two examples, is that like you're either accepting the change and the shift, or you are in complete denial and are sort of trying to force that to not happen. You're like, what can we do by all means to not see the recurring pattern, or what can we do by all means to not accept the new way, right? And I think that's where you're going to find a lot of friction. A lot of people, between their neighbors, strangers, friends, family. Some families might get closer because they're like, wow, I finally feel like I can see what you've been always seeing. And some people are going to be like, I'm just reborn right now, and you got to guide me because these eyes that I have on my head have been seeing things completely in the wrong way, and I got to start all over again. So guide me. So you have another chance to maybe rebuild a relationship with someone who might have like shunned you, right? So it's like, it's a beautiful thing, but it's also a thing that there's no time to waste. And that's my next segue, is that we were talking about how things feel like they're speeding up to an exaggerated pace. And you almost feel like, is it me? Is it me? Did I take too much on? I'm getting older. That's what it is. I'm getting older. So therefore things are just going too quickly for me to have this conversation with someone. And, I should have called them, but even if I did, would they understand where I'm coming from? And before you know it, you don't realize that they're feeling the same way, right? We're just moving so fast through this kind of information exchange internally, but so are they, so are you, so is everyone else, right? And I don't know if you want to really kind of talk about that, where you were saying how time really feels like it's moving or speeding up.
Yeah, no, the compression of time for sure. And, again, Saturn moving through Pisces these last couple of years before this, Pisces is nonlinear. It's non-localized. And so we didn't really have this like steady flow of time. There was moments that would feel very long, and then there was like days that would go very fast when Saturn was moving through Pisces. There was no consistency. It was very fluid. It was like there was no boundaries or barriers. Well, now that it's moved into Aries, and Aries is about like direction and moving forward, as well as being next to like Neptune, which is giving it like this symbolic enhancement. These great cycles that would used to happen over generations are collapsing into like one lifetime right now. People everywhere are feeling time moving differently in this accelerated way, because like weeks are folding into days. Days are dissolving into fragments. Like it is happening so much to this. And the cycles that used to unfold around us slowly are now landing on top of us all at once. So yeah, there's no sitting on the sidelines anymore. it's a coming. And it just depends if you're going to be able to meet it in that kind of way. Because, it's not so much that this new world is like happening around us. It's you're becoming it. Like you're a part of this. You're a part of this complete transmutation that's happening. It's actually you, and it's all mirrored out into our shared reality. But yeah, we're being asked to metabolize more symbolism, more change, more psychic intensity, more than we ever had. Because this is where we find ourselves in time. This is where we are in this time cycle. It always happens this kind of way. And this is what all the reading has been for. This is what all the meditating has been for. And it's not saying to release any of those practices of your studying and your connection to it. It's actually like go deeper and dilate those when you have those moments, but really taking those tools that have been on the shelf and putting them on your tool belt and utilizing them now, because now it's a thing of survival, whether you're like connected and understanding time as it goes through its process. You're either going to be washed away by the storm, or you're going to like ride the waves like a surfer when it comes to time. But there's no choices anymore. Like it's so important to understand where you are so you can operate accordingly and take these unique paths that time's opening up of like, hey, today, this area today is the area of least resistance. So move in this direction today. Tomorrow, it's going to be a little bit different. Not every day is the same.
Right.
You're getting tested with that, and that's being put in front of you. And you never felt the ramifications of not following time as intense as you are going to now, but you've also never felt the benefits of connecting with time like you can experience now. So again, none of this is punishment. It's a wider range of capacity that's opening up. And like we kind of said, when it comes to spiritual tools, what you don't use will be used against you in this reality. That's what the demiurge and the tree of death does. It just uses that capacity against you. So you want to use it up fully so you can kind of starve out that lower ego from getting any control of inversion, and, utilizing these things against us. So, the relationship with like the spiritual discipline and the spiritual backbone and standing up for yourself for like how you connect to that universal life force and not letting anybody tell you one way or the other. If somebody wants to be like, hey, that's not how you're supposed to do it, like, I don't give a fuck. Like, this is how I'm getting connected to the OG. And you get connected to the way you do. I'm not going to impede on you, but you're definitely not going to impede on me just because like I don't have like a walking staff, or something like that when I'm like doing this. Like, nah, like you do you, I'm going to do me, and standing up for that and really allowing this universal life force to like learn itself through us in the unique way it wants to, because this is the time that it's like blossoming flowers it's never blossomed before. And we all are this infinite flower of expression. And it's up to us, which is our free will decision, to decide how much that universal life force is going to learn itself inside of us. That's really what free will kind of expresses. How much is that OG going to learn itself in the container that the mother provided to explore itself? This is the pod. How much is the eye going to explore itself on the pod before the pod returns back to the clay? Because the pod is payable on death and the eye is eternal. And that's what moves on with the wisdom and the soul and the spirit. The body stays. How long is that eye going to learn itself and expand that learning of itself through this container of time that we're operating through? That's kind of where that free will comes into.
That was awesome.
Did I get too weird?
No.
Okay, good deal. You just tell me. You just tell me.
That was great. I wanted you to keep going, man. No, I mean, we talked about strange coincidences, and you talked about numbers, and you talked about the backbone of what you're saying. You were saying the backbone of spirituality, the way that you're supposed to actually, really defend your belief and your connection to the OG. That's just my favorite on how you have to really kind of show up. Like, I know you've said this a couple of times on this episode about, it's not that you have to resign the practices that allowed you to have an understanding of the now application. It's like you can still do the practice to maybe better fine tune the application. But the application is being called right here, right now. And it's very testing right now. I feel like we talked about this in the last episode in regards to aggression, unchecked aggression, antagonizing energies. I feel like it's going to continue happening. That's something that I've had to learn how to accept. Like, we're constantly being antagonized. So find the simple in life that brings you joy to feel the least amount of resistance, right? And it could be something simple that they can't take away from you. And it might be just like how you connect with, a loved one, or how you appreciate like a quiet moment. It's a very simple thing, but it also brings an extra amount of joy, a kind of joy that you would only get when you were sort of like on a psychedelic, where you're like, why don't I sit quietly more often?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to start doing that more. And then you come out of it and you're like, kind of forgot you had that insight. But now it's like, you don't need necessarily any kind of exterior, or altering substance to remind you of that. You're like, man, the only choice I have right now is to accept this like really good meal, or the fact that today I was in less pain than I was in yesterday, or that today I got to see this person and I haven't seen this person in a long time, and it just feels good to be in their presence. And I'm glad they are who they are. You know what I mean? It's just like you just sort of accept things in a kind of a beautiful way. I mean, that's how it's been for me. But it's also very confusing for me, though. I'm not gonna lie, because like I am, uh, you know, um, I am a parent during this time. So my only job is to see through the eyes of my offspring and remind them that like it is that simple and it is that beautiful. And so by like obviously like doing that, it comes right back to me. So I'm just kind of living with my head down, being like, yeah, that is what that is, and then there's just a beautiful moment, you know what I mean? Whether it's like a strum of a guitar, and my son is just like, what's that? And I'm just like, that's a great question, but that vibration you felt, did you like that? And he's just like, yeah. And I'm like, what about this one? He's like, no. I'm like, yeah, that's a minor. Maybe we're not ready for that right now. And he's just like, yeah. Like, I could do this all day long.
You gotta have a heartbreak before a minor happens, right?
Right.
It's like, it's interesting too, man. And you speak about the simple, and in this idea of like within the simple, you tap into the eternal, which is like above this realm, which is like truth, love, and wisdom, which doesn't require a sacrifice. It doesn't need any kind of synthetic or like physical thing to reach that. And that is what we feel through like love and connection. It's what we feel like when we have this like internal true knowing of something, when it kind of comes through. And, it's so funny because it's all so simple, but you have to go through the complicated and the static and the storm to get to the simple. Like, you can't just come out and say it's simple. It's like you got to earn Hakuna Matata. I think we've said before, like you got to earn that no worries kind of component through that process, because like it's something you come into this world with, like, and that's what I think is so fascinating about, hey, how do I maintain this as being a father? Well, it takes two to tango, because he's also teaching you how simple it is. You know what I mean? When it's just like, when he's just like simply amazed by like a blue crayon, and you're just like, wow, like when was the last time that like scribbling a blue crayon on a children's kids menu like brought me that much satisfaction? You know what I mean? So it's like this interesting connection there. And then you like resend it back through the wisdom to keep it simple. But it's so true. It's like this two-way thing. And I think that's what's so beautiful about parenting, is it's like a two-way, like teaching of learning and teaching through it, much different than like me and my cat. My cat just lectures and tells me like, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. And I'm like, I get it. And he's just like, he's like, you got to be better. And I'm like, I totally get you, bro. But, does that make sense?
Dude, I just have to say, we're talking about synchronicities here. For those listening right now in real time, Daniel has no idea like what happens in my life day to day right now. Like, I'm not telling him details. Daniel, I'm telling you this right now live or on this recording. So my wife and I, on a side note, we keep our son very far away from a lot of different visuals and media that some typical parents might be using to like, distract their kids with. We'll just say that. And to each their own, by the way. I know it's very hard, but I came home, I don't know, a couple of days ago, and I heard the words, umama tata. And I was just like, what did he say? And she's like, she being my wife, she's like, I needed to finish my homework on something, and I just played Hakuna Matata for him, and he's just obsessed with it.
Oh,
The fact that you just said
buddy.
that,
Oh, I love that.
So I ended up watching it with him, and it's just like a small section. Right? It's like 2 minutes long. But I remember I was sitting there and I was taken back to my childhood with that song.
Oh,
But fast forwarding with him going like, oh, this is such a simple like way of expressing like what it means. And I remember him trying to say the word philosophy. And I was just like, oh, this is so weird how this is presented to this person. So anyways, the fact that you just chose that right now is just blowing my mind, because I didn't tell you that, right? I didn't tell you that story.
no,
It's something that's happening
I
privately.
love that though.
Boom. Anyways, just to kind of like,
Tie that together. Synchronicities. Yeah. Everything is coming in that kind of way of interconnectedness. And it really is. Like, even when I was like telling you about when I was like going through our numbers together, like, it's so funny. You brought up the numbers 333 today, and in the 3 connections we had with our numbers, we were exactly three numbers away on everything. So it was like a repetition of that 333 that you were kind of like looking at, right?
Wow.
Super fascinating when we're kind of just examining how everything's coming together. And it's so true, because like even in my like the conversations and the consulting I'm doing, the days that people are booking, when we look at their numbers, like it's always like monumental of like the day of their life. Like somebody I did was like, it was like their 11,000th day, 111th day. Like it was 11111 in their life. It was mind boggling. Oh my gosh. I don't think I've even told you this.
Please do.
So I was going through, because I've been working on like coding everything, right, for the podcast, and I got to just make sure I'm going to jump on the Gematrinator right now just to make sure that I do this correctly. But when it comes to my my numbers, because like you have numbers for your name and then you have numbers for your birthday, right? When it comes to like the breakdown of your numbers, it is it's a really, really important thing to work with. And that's like almost been something that I've been doing a lot with individuals recently, is going through their numbers of their name and also like their birthday to get a better understanding of how this energy like works within them. And so the main number, if you look up my birthday, if you go 5 plus 5 plus 19 plus 18 plus 88, I'm not that old, it's 117, right? From my birthday to the day that we released the podcast, I was 11,700 days old. So my main number only could show up in my chart 3 times in my life up to this point. It could show up on my 117th day of my life, my 1017th day of my life, when again, I would be like a little kid. So I don't know how good a podcast would have been made at that time.
Okay.
It literally had a 1 out of 117,000 opportunity to happen. And that was the day that we released the first podcast. I was 11,700 days old. It was literally a 1 out of 11,700 chance to happen. And it happened.
That's
like,
amazing.
We didn't plan that. It was like, cause that wasn't even the first episode we really did. Remember, we did a first episode and I was like, dude, I sucked. I didn't want to release it. So we re-recorded it. And it was kind of like the last shot. We're like, hey, if this doesn't work out, it just doesn't work out, right? And then like, it took us a little while to release it, but we didn't like plan on releasing it on that day. And it wasn't until I went back when I was doing the natal chart for the podcast that I like looked up the day. And it was the exact numbers, which is my birthday number, which is like my main number to study when you look at your birthday. So again, just super fascinating. Like
That's amazing.
Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, It's like so interesting. I can even show you on the screen. See, 11,700 days, and then my birthday, 117.
Wow.
Crazy, bonkers. So cool. As again, these interesting synchronicities, but these are happening at a rate that is just like unbeknownst to even myself right now. Where it's just like, no, this is absolutely like mind-boggling.
Well, it's what you said about the world becoming more patterned. I like that. That was like one of the closing statements that we were talking about um, how reality is starting to look less like chaos and more like a pattern. I think those are quotes from you that I liked. And I think also though, once you notice the pattern, then what do you do with the pattern? Like why is there a pattern, right? Is the pattern just to open your eyes? That could be the first step, right? We're opening your eyes. The second one is because it's something that's calling to your attention, reminding you like you're on the right path, or maybe reminding you you're on the wrong path. This is not the place you're supposed to be. And yeah, there's certain projects that I'm still doing with people, and it's funny how some of them are like, I can't afford to pay you more. And I just don't even feel this need to say like, it's not like I have all the money in the world by any means. So I should be charging more. But I'm like, no, like I feel like the way we connected, the way we met, the currency is different this time. But I don't say that to the person. I just say like, hey, I just believe in what you're doing. And if you need my assistance with whatever medium I'm using to do that, that's just a good time for me. And then they like send me an emoji of like a teary eyed duck. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, no, I mean it. Like I would be not showing up if I wasn't more excited about the fact of how I met that person, the things that have happened to me since meeting that person, than to being like, you're a couple $100 short on what like my normal rate goes. And it's like, ew. So it's hard though, right? Because it's like sometimes I'm like, okay, I do need to like protect my family and all, but I do believe that there's bigger things on the horizon from like staying true to whatever connected us, especially if there was some sort of pattern there. And again, this is not new knowledge to the listeners. So sorry. Like I know you guys have always heard about like, the door opening and the door closing and the person I met that I wasn't supposed to meet. I missed the bus. I sat on the bench for the next bus, met the person who got me my future job. Excuse me. These aren't things that aren't new to us. They're just happening so much more frequently and at a like insane rate. At least for me, I know for you, and hopefully for those of you out there, you're getting some good out of this, this chaos. Because again, there's a very overloading. We're feeling very overloaded, right? Like you were saying that it's okay to feel overwhelmed right now.
For sure.
It's not happening either. That part is true. Like it's not just you. You're not alone. Like the weight does feel heavy. The speed does feel fast. And then the speed going fast and you're losing the handrails you were saying at the beginning of the episode. It's like, well, that's no fun. Yeah, wait, we're going faster, but there's nothing to grab onto. You're like, how does this work? How does this end? Where do I land? When do I get spat out? Can I just fall now? Like this is the anticipation is just crazy, But yeah. Anyways.
Well, it's like it just wants to connect to the only thing that's eternal, which is that source inside of you. That's all it's wanted. It's like, hey, you need to grab onto something, like tap into the heart, tap into that connection you have that's above this reality. And the only thing that's eternal, that doesn't, abide by the aspect of like life and decay, which is that source energy. It's all calling us to kind of go inward and find the true security, because there was never really security in this reality anyways. When people are like, oh, you need to like plan for your security later, but like any kind of security that's being sold to you within the cube, it's gonna die. Like there's no security in here. The only security is eternal. And so, reconnecting to that and understanding that, because like, we're going through a repatterning, and we're not only like witnessing this awakening, we're becoming it, and so, we're on a connection with something that's changing us. And we're part of this turning of the age, and we're being turned by this as well. It's not a new chapter. This is a new book. And so this is kind of what we're moving forward with. And, and we'll kind of go in deeper.
Yeah, I do want to talk about like fear on the next episode.
Yeah.
We didn't cover fear about that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but like some of the things you've said, in terms of the change and the pressure that's happening, you were talking about the idea of transformation always feels like instability while it's happening. You did mention that. But like, I do want to like go in deep with that and also how to navigate through it, especially with like numerology, especially with patterns, right? Like, so that you feel some comfort, I guess, if that's what you're going for.
Yeah. And, and like, again, because we've never experienced a time like this and we're such in the zeitgeist of it, experiencing it now, I think the next few conversations are going to be exactly on understanding this and navigating through it as a community, and working together through this. And so it's like we rarely get to experience something so like biblically transformative as the moment we're in. So we're going to keep examining this. And, one of the things too is, we've opened up another outlet of expression of, information and connection with everybody by, the YouTube channel. So there will also be posts on there, not only like older posts as I dig through my hard drive of videos and like, dude, I store and save videos like a crazy, frantic, blind squirrel. Like, it's just like, rather than typing what the video is, I like, at the time I would like type in a good numerology code that I liked. I'm like, oh, 7790. That's a good number. No idea what that video is about. And it's like buried into like all these folders, right? So slowly going through the process of finding like all of the videos from like community pages, as well as like a zillion videos that I just didn't post, that I just never got around to posting. So there's stuff that's going to be like posted on the YouTube from the past. And then also, like specific things, like going through gematria and explaining what gematria is, going through and teaching like how you use the gematrinator, the tool, kind of like more technical things that we kind of need a video for. That's also going to be stuff that we're going to start like posting on the YouTube too, for people to be like looking out for. But, yeah, I think this conversation on Know Thyself, it would be silly to move away from the pulse that we're experiencing right now, because this is it. This is what we're experiencing, and then always like, obviously, through the videos and through everything as well, if anybody wants to get connected, on conversations, like that's something that I open back up. So that's open, and we can explore so much more beyond astrology, numerology, started coding for businesses. And even if you just want to make tinfoil hats together and talk about like, pigeons not being real, like I'll go down that conversation with you, like anything. So, and so I wanted to say too, if you use, what should be the promo code that I use for this episode for people? What should the code be that they should use to get like 30% off a conversation? What first word that comes into your mind?
Canoe nose.
Canoe nose? Like Canoe's nose? Like the cute little pink nose, or Canoe KNOWS?
That one.
How about this? So it'd be KANU KNOWZ. Canoe nose with a Z at the end. Okay. So yeah, KANU KNOWZ. I love that you made such a like a cipher for somebody to decode there for the promo code. But yep, that's Eddie's special, 30% off for the next couple days. Actually 33% off. 33, and if I could do 0.3, we'll do that. That sounds better.
I like that. That sounds good.
But
no, and that's great, man. I'm really glad that you're able to connect with the community, and that goes without saying. We have a new site coming, possible new Patreon coming. I mean, just anywhere we can connect with you guys. We're still in the midst of figuring out Are these episodes weekly? Are they bi-weekly? If they're two times a month, does that give us room to then do something individually, finally, for the Patreon or for the community,
Community page,
whatever
yeah.
we end up
I think
doing,
we're going to dissolve the
we're
Patreon
still
for
trying to
sure.
figure
Yeah.
out, what we're gonna do to have support from you guys, and we can support you. That's the exchange that I definitely want to look forward to. So, but yeah, man, this has been great. Always, I know that we can keep going, and I'm like, we should keep going, but I want to keep things relevant and keep them tight to my ability to speak to you and not go on a tangent. But it's always just comforting to be able to have this conversation with you, my friend.
Oh, it's just my favorite. It's just my favorite. And so, yeah, dude, it's the best with you, myself, and everybody else included, because it's like always like everybody's here in this space with us. And so it's just an honor to be on the journey with each and every one of you.
It is an honor. Well, until next time, my friend.
Oh, well, until next time.
Cool.